I'm Henry Little, Chief Executive of Opera Rara, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this launch of our Donizetti Songs Project, Volumes 5 and 6, here released as a double album release. If you'd like to ask us a question at any moment during our launch, please feel free to do so via the comments option, and we will respond to you. Or you can go to our Ask Opera Rara form on our website at www.opera-rara.com. Or you can simply use the hashtag AskOperaRara on any of our social media channels. We may even incorporate your question in a future episode of our Lives in Song series, and I'll say a little bit more about that later on. So once again, a very warm welcome to Opera Rara. You join us at a very exciting time, just as we are beginning our 55th season of operatic discovery. And last year, by any standards, was a big year for Opera Rara, in particular when we were named as Gramophone's Label of the Year. The upcoming season promises to be a very exciting one. We will uncover the very final version of Puccini's 1921 La Rondine, working in partnership with our friends at the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And we will also bring our Donizetti Song Project to a close with the releases of the final 4 volumes of Donizetti's solo songs. Alongside that, we are very pleased to offer a series of salon concerts focusing on our work with young and emerging artists. And finally, our last Donizetti and Friends concert at the Wigmore Hall next June, featuring the Italian bass baritone Nicola Alaimo, accompanied by Opera Rara's artistic director, Carlo Rizzi. So the Donizetti Song Project was launched as part of Opera Rara's celebration of the 225th anniversary of Donizetti's birth. That was back in 2022. And this extremely ambitious and I would say thoroughly unique project will see us restoring and recording nearly 200 of Donizetti's songs, nearly all of those unknown, and these will be released over 8 different recital discs featuring the world's finest singers. Last season saw the release of the first 4 volumes of songs, working with artists like Lawrence Brownlee, Nicola Alaimo, Michael Spires, Marie-Nicole Lemieux, Carlo Rizzi and Giulio Zappa. They are all now available to purchase, stream and enjoy. Now you may ask, Opera Rara is an opera company. Why are we doing this? Why have we chosen to focus on this particular area of song? Well, there are many answers to that question. It's not just a way to highlight some of the incredible talents of the world's greatest singers, but also for us, it's a way of bringing to a 21st century audience a significant body of songs by one of Italy's greatest composers for the voice, and in particular the opportunity to position those songs alongside much better known songs in a field which for years, centuries, decades even, has been dominated by French and German composers. Now, everything we do at Opera Rara is about legacy. And one of the principal aims actually of this project is to encourage young and amateur singers to explore, to enjoy these songs. And we're going to have a range of resources coming soon to the Opera Rara website, which are all about encouraging the wider performance of these beautiful works. So turning specifically to volumes 5 and 6, these feature Opera Rara's artist ambassador, Ermonela Jaho, working alongside our artistic director, Carlo Rizzi. They were both recorded last year, and Volume 5 includes songs in Italian, and Volume 6 songs in French. And as I said to you earlier, we are deliberately releasing these as a double album in order to give you the full flavour of the extraordinary soprano repertoire that Donizetti wrote, here interpreted by Ermonela and Carlo. And to give you an idea of that, here is a little video.
Quando bello mio voglio parlare, che spisso bene venne l'ugonio. I'm Ermonela Jaho, and I recorded Donizetti's songs with the great maestro Carlo Rizzi. This is fantastic to sing the unknown treasures, unknown music. The tragedy, the drama, the happiness, every single song has their own story. They are little arias. His genius mind, his artistry, he was so original. I couldn't feel a complete artist without knowing this music, that I love it so much. These songs are fantastic, beautiful, and we have to give this treasure to the opera world.
I'm delighted to be joined now by Carlo Rizzi and Ermonela Jaho, who are going to talk a little bit more about the experience of recording this extraordinary music.
Ciao a tutti. I'm here with my friend, the wonderful artist, phenomenal singer Ermonela, with whom we have worked many times, both in opera Rara and also me and her personally. Ciao Ermonela, how are you?
Ciao Maestro. I'm doing fine, and I'm so happy to have this chatting together, Maestro, because we worked so often together, and making music is like sharing our souls and together with the public. So thank you.
No problem. It was actually a pleasure to record these two CDs with you, one in Italian and one in French. That on top of showing actually the artistry of Donizetti with his incredible easiness that he has in creating melody and different pieces, shows also the artistry of Ermonela. Because, when we do one opera, of course, an opera is very long, but it's one opera, is one character, is one story, is one climax. Here there are, I don't remember, but about 40 small
Correct.
stories, small situations, small climaxes. And and also the situation of recording between, between a big opera with chorus orchestra and a much more intimate set, like just a piano voice is different. So, Ermonela, tell me, what was the most interesting part for you of doing something that is slightly different from what you do generally, and also the most daunting in a way?
Yes, that's true, Maestro. You're absolutely right. Because generally, when you sing Donizetti, and I've sung the Queens, and not only even the other operas, you have the stage, you have the orchestra, you are one character. Here it was a little more challenging because over 40 romanzas, something like that, and the changing, jumping from one story to the other one, it was really challenging because the emotional range in those songs, it was incredibly, incredibly, challenging, because it goes from something funny, great vulnerability, or sadness, and and I think what I discovered as a singer is that giving this kind of drama, this powerful, emotional speaking, we don't need so much, power music or the orchestra or the chorus. Sometimes in the simplicity, it comes out something so sad, so funny, but comes from something personal. And even the texts also are like that. And only with pianoforte and voice together, it was like singing together, maestro, in duet, let's say, and answering to each other, this kind of emotional range. So, and somehow I went back to discipline a little bit myself, because singing Butterfly, or, as you know, maestro, or Suor Angelica, or all these very small operas, and somehow I would say I cheated a little bit, because you can give more drama or screaming or using those little tricks. Here, I had to be really, really disciplined. And you know how many times we repeated all the little tiny phrases, because it needed simplicity. And what I've learned, that sometimes, to go straight to the soul of the public, you need to give that kind of with colors, and even the silence, even the simplicity gives the same kind of emotion, I would say. So it was a great work, that a lesson, that we've done together.
I'm very happy that you're saying these things, because for me it was the same. I have to say, I said it before, but as a conductor, very often when you have to marshal, big forces, there is a sort of technical aspect that you have to do, because otherwise things fall apart. But for me, the beauty of this project, and to work with singers like you, is that is much more flexible in many ways, is much more free, not anarchic free, but allowed us to follow the song, the voice. And one thing that I wanted to point out, when you have an aria in an opera, you have an orchestra introduction, then you have the chorus, that you have the interjection of the chorus of another soloist, then you do the cavalletta, etc., etc. Here, in 2-3 pages, you have to do everything. And this project with Opera Rara is different from the other that you have done, because your debut was with Zazà, Leoncavallo, then Puccini, Willy, and then you have done your album Anima Rara. This is much more going back to maybe an earlier part of your career. I remember once we were talking, and you said something that I hope you don't mind me sharing with the public, that made me laugh, but also made me think, because you said, I do all this very big roles, dramatic roles, because I die very well on stage.
That's true. That's true.
But then you say, but my voice is actually, basically lyrical. And with this recording, I think we have gone back a little bit to that.
That's true, absolutely true. And it felt so comfortable, because I started in my first years as a soprano. I started as soprano lyrico. I sang L'Elisir d'Amor, Don Pasquale. After that, I sang even the Donna, Anna Bolena, Maria Stuarda. And it felt so comfortable, because maybe it fits very well into my voice. And it felt going back, but with more experience and to have more to know a little bit more about this repertoire, and then somehow, I could understand that better. Because Donizetti, it's not so easy. Yes, we have this romanza, sometimes 1 page, as you said that before, Maestro, 2 pages or 3 pages or 15 pages, 15 minutes sometimes, the whole story. But in that simplicity is somehow we show. I had to challenge myself because it needed so much control about the sound, about the words, to give the importance, the real importance to the words, to be understandable, even in breathing, even those pauses. You remember, Maestro, how many times we turned and we repeated because in that simplicity to give the story to the public, it wasn't easy. So for me, it was a great school and going back to my study, but with the experience now. So yeah, it was the project. It was something really incredible. And I think it's going to be helpful for the young generation, because to bring the young generation to this, to Donizetti or to the opera, they don't have to face it like, to sing Donizetti. You need to have the coloratura, you have to have the whole, to have so many years of school, but still starting for something, because even the little arias, little songs, you see the melody, because the melodies of Donizetti, they are incredible. And the simplicity to start to studying bel canto and little coloratura with these songs. So it's something incredible. And I think even to bring something to the public unknown, unheard, and which opera has a great role in this, is like to give a strong sense of artistic purpose to the public, to the young generation. So still, I feel so excited that we have this great moment together.
But for me, what you were saying when then you said it yourself when you said this brings back to my beginning. I think without wanting to play our own trumpet in opera rara, I think that this project is also important from the educational point of view for the young singers. When we revive an opera that has been forgotten, we do it because we believe in that opera. But with all the songs that we have to remember that, and the public needs to remember that many of the songs were done just for very simple occasion. Was the daughter of a friend that invited Donizetti to dinner that she was singing, and he wrote a song. So even if from the point of view of the voice, of the technical part of the voice, is not like La Fille de Regiment with
Exactly.
Bob says, but the artistry is actually much more bare and exposed to do this. And I think I spoke with a lot of singing teachers, and when I was saying, explaining what we were doing, they were really jumping on the idea of the project for the students, because they finally great, rather than starting with things like La Mamma Morta or this kind of operas that young singers should not do, because it requires a different kind of maturity, physical also. This Donizetti song can be very interesting. And one example, for example, we can see now when we will hear the first song that is from the French volume, Au pied d'une croix. That is very interesting to see how the song have a beautiful melody at the beginning, but then there is the desperation in the middle. It comes 2-3 times, and it's also interesting to see that while the line of the voice remain. Not saying the same, it changed, but more or less in that range. Donizetti uses the piano, the accompagnamento, to get more and more dramatic. Let's listen to this.
Au pied
that was something. As a beautiful song, beautifully interpreted by Ermonela, with all the range, the diversity in the voice and the expressions. So now we have this was the first CD that we recorded, the French one. Now we go to the Italian CDs. I have noticed doing this also with the other songs. We recorded a tenor, a disc with a tenor in Italian and a disc with tenor in French. I remember thinking that the French songs, maybe because they come a little bit later, were a little bit more elaborated. That doesn't take it away from the Italians, of course. But what was your take? Did you find any difference, apart from the language, obviously, in between the French world of Donizetti songs and the Italian worlds?
True, Maestro. For me, it was really palpable difference because in Italian, yes, it's more direct, and more funny because the range of the emotion, it was in dialect in Napoletano or in Venice dialect. It has another taste. In French, absolutely, you're absolutely right, Maestro. It was more elaborated and I would say more sentimental. And the French language, the way how it was written, it took something more attention to the words, Italian as well, but it's more intern, more not so direct, not so straightforward like in Italian language. And they had that kind of taste, more intimate, more vulnerable, I would say. I found it like that, and more dramatic. They were, for example, if we go back to the first aria that we heard before, Au pied d'une croix, voyez-vous, it's this human, this mother suffering, crying, or praying for because she's in pain. She lost her child, and the drama in French music, it's stronger and more elaborated, I would say, musically speaking. And there we can see another Donizetti, and Donizetti more intimate, more and more sad, I would say. We know about his life. His life, it was so sad, so it was a tragedy, and I can feel it that more in the French romanzas than in the Italian one. This was my perception. I don't know. What do you think, Maestro? So yeah.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. Although I wanted to say that is interesting how, particularly in the Italian songs, if you remember, there was a song that we recorded was Che non mi disse un dì. There were two, and at a certain point also three versions. And I remember our friend Roger coming in with one, so okay, this is the number 329A. Now this is the number 329B, but actually the 329A has become 329C because we found another version. And I want to mention this because many people may just think, oh yes, there is a piece of music and they just do it. But actually, the scholarly work that Roger had to do for all the songs was incredible. And the songs that you have recorded, although the words were the same and at the beginning the music was also the same, really showed that Donizetti probably was trying to obtain a different kind of emotion. Some people may say, a little bit cynically, that maybe forgot that he wrote it already. I don't know, but this is not necessarily the point. But the thing that I want to say is that Donizetti also, with all the songs, I think also experimented both in French, but also in Italian, the songs in Italian. Now we are going to listen to another song, not the one that I just mentioned, but on Arietta, and the title is Eterno Amore e Fe, and eternal love and eternal faith. And I think that is important to see how at the beginning, when the person, the lover, say, I swear forever my love and my faith to you, it becomes very rhythmical, also almost like declamatory. Then when it describes what is like loving you, that is to love, to die for you is the only good things that I have, then here is where Donizetti really again expresses his beautiful gift in creating melodies.
That was Ermonela and Carlo performing one of Donizetti's better-known songs, Eterno Amore e Fe. Before we hear from music historians Roger Parker and Mary Ann Smart, I want to tell you a little bit more about the legacy of the Donizetti project, and in particular, 3 ways in which this initiative is starting to have impact across the world. The first is a new partnership between Opera Rara and the Donizetti Festival in Bergamo. The Donizetti Festival is known for the promotion of Donizetti's music because Bergamo was the city in which the composer was born. So we are, in effect, with this, bringing Donizetti's songs home. And we will be doing that through a unique and very special partnership with the festival's Bottega program, where for the next 3 years, starting this autumn in November, we will be performing all of the Donizetti songs. The second example of the legacy of this project is about the range of educational materials which we're going to make available through our partnership with Bloomsbury Digital Resources. This is genuinely a global initiative, and it's aimed particularly at students. And the final example of legacy that I want to share with you is our new Opera Rara podcast, Lives in Song, where the first season we focused exclusively on Donizetti. That whole season is now available to stream on all podcast platforms, and the show features musicologist, critic and broadcaster Flora Wilson in conversation with Opera Rara consultant Roger Parker, who is also the editor and curator of the Donizetti Song Project. Everything we do at Opera Rara is about legacy. And I've just given you 3 examples how digital resources and global partnerships, for example, will help to secure the legacy of these extraordinary songs. Now, we can only do that. We can only make that legacy thrive through the generosity of our supporters. So to all of them who have helped us with the Donizetti Song Project, we extend a huge thank you. And to those of you who might be interested in supporting us, we would encourage you to come on board. Even just a gift of £5 or £10 a month will make a huge difference. So please do consider joining the growing family of Opera Rara supporters. And to see this legacy in action, here is a clip from a recent Lives in Song podcast.
Well, today we need to think right back to our first episode when we talked about the death of Donizetti's beloved wife, Virginia. That was in 1837, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's all sorts of reasons for thinking it was the seminal event in Donizetti's later life. After that, he didn't see, for a long time, I think he said he didn't see the point of composing anymore. He didn't see the point of making a living. And gradually what this became associated with was Italy itself. And increasingly after his wife died, he was thinking of moving away from Italy. The memories were too much for him.
So in brief, what were the kind of long-term impacts of this tragedy for him? In practical terms, what happened?
Well, in practical terms, he, I'd say, fell out of love with Italy, and the obvious place to go, which he immediately started thinking of, was Paris. There's a long history of Italian composers going to Paris. Famously, Rossini was there and was a very important influence there.
I mean, he wasn't just there. I mean, he was actually running one of the theatres, one of the opera houses there for a while.
He was running the Théâtre Italien, the Italian theatre there. And Donizetti had been there already in 1835, 1836. Not a huge success, but his Italian operas were beginning increasingly to be performed there. And so what better to move to Paris, and you could make a better living in Paris than you could in Italy. So it had all sorts of, a change of scene was good for his mental health, should we say, but also for his financial health.
Do we know did he already have a kind of social network there? Did he know people in Paris when he moved?
Paris was famously at that time a sort of cosmopolitan centre. So yes, definitely there were people, and there was this kind of aristocratic network that seemed constantly to be moving around and giving each other letters of introduction and so on. So he certainly had doors open to him already.
So that was Roger Parker in conversation with Flora Wilson as part of our Donizetti Lives in Song podcast series. I now want to introduce Roger Parker and Mary Ann Smart. Mary Ann is Professor of Musicology at the University of California in Berkeley, and she is also the author of one of the articles in our booklet. So, Roger and Mary Ann, welcome, and over to you.
Hey, so I'm here with Mary Ann Smart, and I feel like I ought to make an online proposal or something at this point. The proposal being that we should write some more about Donizetti songs, because you've supplied all these essays, and I've been writing about them too, and it's been a great experience for me, I must say. Sort of collaborating. We've done a lot of collaborating in the past, but it's been fun to do this. I don't know what your experience, just tell us what your experience has been so far about doing this.
Well, it's incredibly fun writing these liner notes, getting to know the songs. And I was reading over the last one that I wrote just before this. I was having the exact same thought, like, what can I do with this? It's really a contribution to opera history and the knowledge of 19th century vocal music. And I think it needs to get out there in some other form, although the most important form is the recordings, just the existence of the songs and the availability of the songs. But it would really be nice to write something else about it and build it out into a larger project.
I wonder, we've both, a long time ago now, you were the editor of Don Sébastien by Donizetti, which was like his longest and largest opera. I think, did the score come to 1,000 pages? It was close, if
Yeah.
not. And I don't know how you feel, but one of the great delights of working on these songs is that you can immerse yourself in one, and it takes an hour or something, but then you've got something out of it. While these operas, to work on them, are endless, and you're constantly having to keep all this information in your head. While these songs are a little world, they introduce a little world, don't they?
Well, yes, they certainly do. They're closed little jewels in it, but my experience of them is actually different because I wasn't doing the editing in this case. I was listening, reading, trying to think about the musical patterns and uh, how to weave them together. I think to say something interesting about a lot of songs by one composer, to me, it felt like the only way to do that was to think about groupings and patterns. Um, so for me, it wasn't so much like each song is a world, but what are the things that appealed to Donizetti? What kinds of literary themes, what kinds of musical patterns or, settings. And what does that tell us about him? But equally, what does that tell us about the audience that he was writing for and his surroundings, the things that people around him thought were important? This, to me, it comes into focus, especially with the French songs, because that was a new setting for him and one where he really wanted to make a mark and fit in, I think. So you can see him sampling things that people in Paris, fads really, that polite society and educated society in Paris was into at a particular moment. And so for me, it's the patterns and the groupings that were more exciting than the kind of crystallization in a single song.
Yeah, and that was what was great for me about reading your notes, actually, because you've been bringing these together and thinking about, well, what's the attitude, what are the fashions of the time. I wonder whether it was Auden who said it's easy to ask the hard question, but the hard question might be, what do you think the difference is between the Italian salon and the French one? And it's obviously made more difficult by the fact that there's a chronological difference between them. Like,
Yeah.
the French salon is a salon of the 1840s, and the Italian one goes back right to the 1820s or something like that. But what do you think about that? What are the main differences, do you think, between the two? Or maybe there aren't so many differences.
That is a hard question. The chronology is a big part of what makes it hard because I don't think you see as much stylistic development in the Italian songs. The French songs often sound like he's trying to be modern, or to tackle a modern scene, or a particularly intense emotion. Um, one of the things when I was skimming over the liner note just now, one of the things I pointed out is that the Italian songs often are picturesque in a sort of retrograde way. Like there seemed to be a taste in the Italian salon or in these sort of settings for private, intimate performances for uh, tourism and vicarious tourism, or sampling the kind of innocence of life in the Alps, country life in the Alps. The setting for an opera like La Sonnambula gives you a little bit of sense of that, or less so Linda di Chamonix, since they leave right away. But these songs often seemed, could be taken from a very early moment in one of those operas. And we don't only get the Alps, you also get Neapolitan fishermen and all sorts of other local, imagined local settings from Italy. The French were not so interested in any part of France that wasn't Paris. So the themes that Donizetti gravitates for in the French songs have more to do with, a few of them are about urban poverty, which is really interesting. That's not something you would really imagine Donizetti engaging with musically, or anyone engaging with musically, really, in the 1840s. And otherwise, the huge majority of the French songs are about abandoned women on the verge of breakdown. not exactly mad scenes, but a kind of intensity and devastation that verges on that.
Yeah, I wonder whether, I mean, another way of putting that is while the Italian salon pieces very often tend to look backwards, and
Yeah.
look backwards to the 18th century quite often with all these metastasio and shepherds and shepherdesses and all that kind of stuff. While the French ones are startling for the way they look forward, for their kind of modernity, for the psychological complexity of some of what's going on.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use the word psychological complexity very often of the Italian ones, would you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Donizetti's French operas don't do that. Um, they are, in terms of musical style and pacing, there are some things about them that you could say are more modern, that were sort of enabled by the longer time spans of French operas or the greater resources. But they're not looking at social themes or psychological themes in those kinds of ways at all. So this is something he's only doing in the Salon.
One thing that obviously comes up whenever people are talking about these songs is, well, of course, Donizetti is an opera composer, so these must be like operas. The thing that struck me actually increasingly going on is how little like operas they are in all sorts of ways. But it's rather difficult to say exactly how that happens. In what ways can you describe the fact that they're not opera? And I guess one of the things, I mean, quite often melodies get borrowed, backwards and forwards.
Mhm.
There's something, I mean, an opera song needs to take longer than a salon song. It develops on a broader scale, so it's less complicated in some ways. I don't know. I mean, how
Yeah.
would you put it? What is new about these songs which you don't get in the operas?
The pacing and the scale was what you're referring to. Is it's hard to to pinpoint that, but um, a typical sort of lyric slow movement in a Donizetti opera is going to be quite balanced.
Mm.
And part of that is it takes a long time to set up the initial, well, it takes 8 measures or a minute and a half or something to set up the initial melody, but it feels like a long time in terms of the overall experience. And it's comforting. I think one of the reasons that approach to melody had the staying power that it did is because there's a lot of pleasure in hearing something unfold in a symmetrical way, in a sort of leisurely way. But not too many of the songs do that. Some of them have plenty of repetition, but it's a different kind of repetition. It's a bit more like a folk song sometimes, which means simpler bits of melody, repeated in a kind of, verse or verse chorus sort of pattern. Um, the other thing that strikes me is it's a bit different from the direction you were going, but I tend to hear the songs a lot of the time, including the Italian ones, but especially the French, as Donizetti doing things that he couldn't do in a more public milieu, or when the team that was putting the thing together was larger and sort of more cumbersome. Um, that includes things like playing around with setting Dante, but also a lot of writing that's where a song might begin with something that sounds a bit like recitative. Um, he will indulge in a more sort of irregular speech-like kind of pattern for quite a long time, with maybe some dissonances or explosive gestures in the piano. Um, so it's a bit like a recitative in an opera, but it could actually be the first section of a song, which will then release into more of a sustained melody to kind of capture the main sentiment. There's lots of ornamentation in the songs. It's not that the songs, I mean, probably another assumption that a lot of people have about the difference between a song and an opera is that songs are written for less skilled singers and can't be as showy or don't need to be as showy. Some of these songs were written for less skilled singers and some of them weren't, but they do have a lot of vocal ornament, but even that works in a different way. It's kind of, I think, more uh, it's indulged in for its own sake. It doesn't always come as a release at the end of a, symmetrical, measured out melodic structure. Um,
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to think about these. I mean, what it leads me on to ask is, what has your view of Donizetti changed? By thinking about these songs, and I mean, I think as far as I'm concerned, one of the things, I mean, we're both aware of this, that there is a tendency for Italian opera to become ghettoized in a sense. If you do Italian opera, that's what you do. And, like I was in Bayreuth this summer and everyone goes, oh, but you do Italian opera. What are you doing in Bayreuth? That kind of stuff. And the one thing that these songs sort of insist on is Donizetti's European identity, in a sense, that you can imagine them easily translated into other languages as well.
Well, and
That,
they often were. Actually,
yeah,
that's it's worth pausing on for a minute because for some reason, I became very excited at one early on in this project, in my participation in this project. I became pretty excited by the realizing how frequently these song collections, once they got published in collections like the what's it called, Univers à Paris. A lot of them are seasonal and geographical, the titles that they were given. That these collections were republished by many different publishers in all the major European cities. Which doesn't mean that the language of the singing language was translated to German or anything like that, but that they had sort of separate commercial lives in many different locations. To me, that seeing those listings of the different publishers in the different cities gave me a really concrete sense of how connected Europe was, even at this time when it took quite a while to move between places.
yeah, exactly. And the one thing I think which sort of becomes obvious, if Donizetti had lived longer, I think there would have been an identifiable German or other Austrian Donizetti, that he never really, when you see those late operas are beginning to, really imbibe the Viennese atmosphere, and the songs would have done as well, I think.
Yeah, you certainly see that in his letters that he was excited by Vienna, by the possibilities of being there and making it, convincing the Viennese that he belonged.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to segue into a song, one of the French songs that Ermonela sung with Carlo, and this is Le Bal Masqué, which I don't know if you remember it, Marianne. It's a fascinating song because it's a pathologically jealous woman who's looking into a ballroom and seeing the lover who's rejected her, um, having fun with other people. And it's sort of superimposed onto it is this almost deliberately banal music. That's the kind of modernity that we were talking about.
It's
Um,
supposed to be the dance music, isn't it? Part of the
yeah,
time, sort of
yeah,
alternations. I haven't re-listened to this for several months, I guess, but um, what I remember is a kind of pretty declamatory style for the soprano at the
yeah,
beginning, at least, and which is clearly her pain and shock at the it's very much in the present moment. As I guess I mean the text is in the past, I saw them,
yeah,
but it feels like it's being told in the moment what she sees and how she reacts. But then the piano is the real life accompaniment to this ball. At least
yeah. So
that's how I heard it early on in the song.
yeah, exactly. And so the strange sort of sense is that the melodies that you hear, yeah, she's declaiming all the time. The melody that you hear is jarring and dissonant in some way. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's jangly. Yeah. I
yeah.
was just I spent a lot of this week talking about Rigoletto, which is about
There's
to
a
be
lot of
performed
yeah,
at the San
yeah,
Francisco Opera. And I've never particularly loved the first scene of Rigoletto, but I started finding it really interesting this week. And it's that same thing where it's the banda playing dance music for these, this incredibly corrupt court, the Duke's court, that's got that same sort of tinny or jangly element, maybe.
It's jarring banality. It's almost like, I mean,
Exactly.
Marlowe was the next person to understand that. Anyway, so yeah, well, look, thanks very much, Marianne, for talking about this. Let's segue into Ermonela and Carlo doing this song. Je les ai vus. The title is Le Bal Masqué.
Je les ai vus entrer dans cette loge. La jalousie à ce bal m'appela. À sa fierté, mon pauvre cœur déroge. Je les ai vus, je les ai vus, et je suis encore là, encore là. J'attends que la fidèle sorte pour l'accabler de cris injurieux. Hélas, hélas, puissais-je tomber mortelle à cette place sous ses yeux? C'était bien lui, mon désespoir réclame.
So that was Le Bal Masqué from volume 6 of the Donizetti Songs series. I want to close by thanking Ermonela Jaho, Mary Ann Smart, Roger Parker for their participation, and I particularly want to thank our artistic director, Carlo Rizzi, for joining us as well. Both volumes 5 and 6 of the Donizetti songs are released tomorrow, and you can order them on the Opera Rara website now. I want to encourage all of you to stay on our YouTube channel from the premiere of those recordings at 7 p.m, beginning with volume 5 of Italian songs and then continuing with volume 6 of French songs. And the link to the YouTube channel is being placed in the chat now. So now I'll wrap up with a reminder of some of the highlights from our upcoming season. First of all, the Donizetti Song Project continues. Volume 7, featuring Rosa Faiola, accompanied by Carlo Rizzi, will be released in March of 2026. And Volume 8, the final volume in the series, featuring Nicola Alaimo, again accompanied by Carlo Rizzi, will be released in June of 2026. Alongside that, our series of salon concerts continues with a recital by Germán Enrique Alcántara on the 10th of October at Middle Temple Hall, and then a further 2 concerts in the spring of 2026, the first featuring Juliette Lozano-Roland and the second featuring Soraya Maffei and Robert Lewis. Both of those concerts will be accompanied by Anna Tilbrook. Our final Donizetti and Friends concert will be at the Wigmore Hall and will take place in June of 2026, featuring Italian bass baritone Nicola Alaimo and Opera Rara's artistic director Carlo Rizzi. And that will coincide with the final release of our 8-volume collection. In December, we return to the studio for an opera recording of the 1921 version of Puccini's La Rondine, led by Ermonela Jaho and conducted by Carlo Rizzi. There will be a performance at the Barbican Hall on the 5th of December, working with our partners at the BBC Symphony Orchestra and the BBC Singers. And more information on this and everything else about our work can be found on the Opera Rara website, opera-rara.com. Please click below to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website and join our mailing list to hear more and to stay connected with us. We would like to especially thank Elena Baturina, our lead supporter of volumes 5 and 6 of the Donizetti Song Project, as well as the members of the Opera Rara Donizetti Syndicate. The Donizetti Song Project is also supported by the Colwinston Charitable Trust and the Cocaine Grants for the Arts at the London Community Foundation. Opera Rara's work is only made possible by the support of its loyal family of donors and viewers like you. For more information about supporting Opera Rara, please go to www.opera-rara.com/support. Finally, thank you for being with us as we continue to rewrite operatic history.
Et c'est point de mystère, l'on s'aime sans